Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bobby Valentine Sports Show. I'm your host, Frank Rampin. The championship series are here. Matchups are set. End of the divisional round. All four series were unbelievable. 2 of the 4 ended up going to 5 games. So let's dive into the weekly recap, break down the divisional series, and then preview the championship series for both leagues. So, like we always do, we'll start off with our play of the week. This one takes us out to Chavez Ravine in Southern California, in LA, just outside of LA. So this is actually the bottom of the first inning. 1-0 San Diego already. This is game 2. This is Fernando Tatis already hit a homer in this game. So Mookie Betts, 1 out after Shohei was retired, facing Yu Darvish. First pitch he sees lifted high and deep to left field. Jurickson Profar back at the wall, leaps, and he's hopping around. No one knows where the ball is. The fans are confused. He's talking to some fans. Mookie thinks it's a home run. The graphic says home run. It says 1-1 on the scoreboard. But Jurickson Profar made the catch. What a play. Up into the hands in the crowd, brings it back. And no one knew what happened. The announcers didn't know what happened. His teammates didn't know what happened. The only one who knew was the people who were right there trying to catch the ball. What a play from Jurickson Profar, and what a deke job. I've never seen an outfielder sell robbing a home run like that, ever, especially in such a big moment. Home run in the first inning that would tie the game in the playoffs. Unbelievable moment for Jurickson Profar, and wow, home run robbery. So now from the play of the week to the game of the week, again, going coast to coast, from Chavez Ravine to Citi Field in Queens. This takes us to game 4 between the Mets and the Phillies. So scoreless, 0-0 in the top of the 4th, chopped to Vientos at 3rd. Alec Boehm hits that one. Harper comes in diving, 1-0 Phillies, with 1 out here in the 4th. Tough play there for Mark Vientos, unable to come up with it, so Phillies on top. So now we move all the way to the bottom of the 6th inning, 1-0 still to score. Bases loaded here. The Mets had left so many runners on base at this point. 2 times they left the base loaded before this. Another time they left first and second. So here comes Lindor, their leader. Their leader, Lindor. Bases loaded, 1 out, facing Carlos Estevez. 2-1 count, fastball detonated to right center field. Castellanos can only look. Grand slam. The biggest hit in the history of Citi Field, potentially. Francisco Lindor makes it 4-1 Mets in the 6th inning. First homer of the postseason for Lindor, and Citi Field was on fire. Wild scenes here in Queens. This place was raucous. And Lindor is the man, dude. He's hit the biggest home runs of the season so far for the Mets. He just continues week after week, day after day to come through in the big spot. And he runs around the bases here like he just does this every day. This is normal Francisco Lindor behavior. Grand slams to send my team to the National League Championship Series. Yeah, let me just stroll around the bases because I am the guy. He is unbelievable. Mets fans, I envy you because I love this dude. Of course, they got to take the OMG picture sign. So it's 4-1. The score holds all the way to the 9th inning. Edwin Diaz, after working into some trouble with some walks, gets Kyle Schwarber swinging. That ends it 4-1 the final, and the Mets are on to the National League Championship Series. For the first time since 2015, they will play the Dodgers. What scenes at Citi Field. Edwin Diaz, after struggling to get the first couple outs, finally gets Schwarber to end the ball game. 4-1, Mets win. What scenes this was. Unbelievable. From 0-5, like Gary Cohen said, from 0-5 to OMG, now all the way to the National League Championship Series. Carlos Mendoza has done an unbelievable job with this team. Francisco Lindor, their leader, deserve all the credit. This team will not quit. Unbelievable season for the Mets lives on. So, told you one of those teams, and I did say that they're playing the Dodgers, so I got you one of the matchups in mind. But let's go through the divisional standings recap, or divisional round recap, excuse me. Starting with the New York Yankees, they played a series against the Kansas City Royals. The first game of the series was a crazy back-and-forth affair. 5 lead changes in Game 1, the most in any game in the history of the postseason. Back and forth, back and forth. Yankees ended up coming on top with a Alex Verdugo single late in the ball game. So, bunch of timely hits from not of the biggest stars of the Yankees. Austin Wells had a couple big hits. Stanton had a big series, but not at this point yet. Aaron Judge, cold to start off his playoff tenure. And after a couple games in, striking out a few times, Aaron Judge is actually the all-time leader in strikeout rate in postseason baseball history. But Rodon had a pretty rocky start at Yankee Stadium that made it 1-1 after that win in Game 1. They head out to Kansas City, and they end up taking both of those two games away against the Royals. Finished off by an absolute gem by their ace, former Cy Young Award winner Garrett Cole, through 7 innings against the Royals in the clincher. What a game from him. And the bullpen from the Yankees has not given up a run all postseason long. So what came into this postseason as probably their biggest question mark, besides from the fact of their depth, let's say, but man, the bullpen has showed up and showed out in this playoffs. So the Yankees, moving on to the American League Championship Series, lost their last 5, have not made the World Series since 2009. They will be facing the Cleveland Guardians, who took down the Tigers in 5 games. Cleveland got behind in the series 2-1. They were trailing in Game 4. Bo Brisky on the mound for Detroit had not given up a hit in the entirety of the playoffs. Pinch hitter David Fry came up to the dish, and he hit a 2-out, 2-strike, 2-run home run that put the Cleveland Guardians on top 4-3. It was a massive swing, saved the season of the Guardians, and they were leading 4-3. And then later in the ballgame, so that was David Fry's first at bat, pinch hit, go-ahead 2-run homer to put them up late in the 7th inning. And then his next at bat, he comes up and he does a safety squeeze that scores a run. And they end up winning by 1 run. So David Fry, 3 RBIs in the game off the bench, 1 for 1, I guess, with a sacrifice bunt, 1 for 1 with a 2-run home run, and then the safety squeeze that scored a run. Unbelievable contribution from the bench from David Fry. Unbelievable roll of the dice, too, from Stephen Vogt. So that kept the season alive in Game 4. That forced a Game 5. That one was in Detroit. Late game magic from the Guardians. So coming into Game 5, they needed to win. Obviously, winner take all. Whoever makes this goes to the ALCS. And the Tigers had Tarek Skubal on the mound, the presumptual Cy Young Award winner in the American League, who won the Triple Crown in the American League. So he's on the mound to pitch, which presumably gives the Tigers the advantage. Finally, the Tigers do break through with Skubal on the mound, score a run off of a Kerry Carpenter single. Would have been a double off the wall, but he's got a hamstring problem, brought in the first run of the game. So it was 1-0 Tigers with Skubal on the mound in the 5th. Looking like a recipe for success for Detroit, but here we go. The Guardians end up loading the bases against Skubal in the 5th. 2 nice hits to the left, through the left side by left-handers Stephen Kwan and by Brian Rocchio, I believe. No, Brian Rocchio, switch hitter. Not sure. Andres Jimenez and Stephen Kwan. There it is. And then an infield single by David Fry. We talked about him. So that loaded the bases for Jose Ramirez. 1-0 game. Cleveland trailing by 1, and Jose Ramirez was hit in the forearm on the first pitch. Drilled him right in the arm. Skubal lost his command for that pitch, and it was tied. 1-1 off the hit by pitch with the bases loaded. And now the next batter was Lane Thomas. And on the first pitch that he saw, he crushes Skubal, jumps on a first pitch fastball, and deposited it into the big, over the high wall in left field. Grand slam from Lane Thomas, making it 5-1, and that put the Guardians in head, and they never looked back. They ended up winning the game 7-2, I believe it was, and advanced to the ALCS. So, Cleveland versus the Yankees in the American League Championship Series. After 2 pretty wild series, Giancarlo Stanton, like I mentioned, led the Yankees throughout that series, throughout the end of it. Won them Game 3, decisive Game 3, or pivotal Game 3, I'm saying, and then he won them Game 4. So, ALCS, Yankees, Guardians. I personally believe that if the Yankees can just play to their normal standard, they will win this game. So let's go over to the National League. The Philadelphia Phillies faced off against the Mets. Showed you that one in our Game of the Week. Showed you Game 4. Actually showed you how the Phillies ended up losing this series. But the Mets, man, they have not stopped. They started on that Monday. Or by the way, let's mention this real quick before we go on to the Mets. Kyle Schwarber, 12 home runs in his postseason career for the Phillies. That is the most in franchise history for Philadelphia. Kyle Schwarber also 18 home runs in the postseason. That's tied for 4th all time. Pretty impressive from Kyle Schwarber. He always shows up in the postseason. Phillies and Mets played a wild series, wild games involved, but the Mets especially. Ever since they played game 161, that for game 1 of that doubleheader against the Braves on 2 Mondays ago, that doubleheader was, if each team won a game, the Braves and the Mets would both make it to the playoffs, so both teams needed to get a win in the doubleheader. The Mets in game 1 were down 3-0 heading into the 8th inning, getting absolutely shut down by Spencer Schwellenbach. Out of nowhere, come alive to score 6 runs in the top of the 8th inning. Bunch of singles in a row, a bunch of hits in a row, and then a bomb from Brandon Nimmo on top of the chop house. 6-3 Mets after being down 3-0 the whole game. They work into some trouble in the bottom of the 8th inning, here comes Edwin Diaz. He blows the game. The Braves go back up 7-6 on a bases clearing double by Ozzie Albies. So it's 7-6 after the Mets clawed their way all the way back to make it 6-3. 7-6 heading to the ninth, and Francisco Lindor hit a 2-run home run in the top of the ninth inning to put the Mets on top for good. So the Mets started their crazy run, or started way earlier with that, with Grimace and all that stuff. But that was their first, okay, this is a playoff game. They won that game to make it to the playoffs. They win game 1 in comeback fashion against the Brewers. They lose game 2 in comeback fashion, blow the game late. Phil Maton gives the homer to Jackson Churio. And then in game 3, Pete Alonso, down by 2 runs in the top of the ninth inning. 1 out in the ninth, 2-0 Brewers. Pete Alonso hits a 3-run home run to put the Mets up 3-2. They end up going another one, 4-2, and the Mets move on. Game 1 of the series against the Phillies, the Mets came back to beat them again in the 8th inning. In the 9th inning of game 2, Mark Vientos hit a game-tying 2-run home run in the top of the ninth. That was actually erased by a walk-off single by Nick Castellanos, but still, the Mets were fighting. And then in game 3 was their first real blowout of the whole playoffs, I guess. I was there for that one. Pete Alonso, Jesse Winker hit homers, Starling Marte, Jose Iglesias have clutch hits. So that put them ahead in game 3. And then in game 4, another ridiculous moment. Francisco Lindor, grand slam, down 1-0 in the 6th inning. That's the game-winning hit, biggest hit of the season for the Mets. So this Mets team just cannot stop producing clutch hits, coming through late in ball games. It's been an unbelievable ride. Let's see how they match up against this Los Angeles Dodgers team. Tough offense to run through, obviously, with Shohei, Freddie, and Mookie at the top of the lineup. Still formidable throughout after that. Teoscar Hernandez, the home run derby winner. Kike Hernandez, who's a great postseason player. And that Dodgers pitching staff has been great. So speaking of that, going over to the other divisional round, the divisional series in the National League, after the Mets take the Phillies down in 4, the Padres played the Dodgers. And after the Padres took a 2-1 series lead, they scored 10 runs in game 3, the Padres did. They hit 6 home runs in the game, tied a franchise record for most home runs in a single postseason game. Or no, tied the all-time record for the most home runs in a single postseason game. And they're on the brink of taking down their biggest rival, the Los Angeles Dodgers. But then what happens? The Dodgers didn't give up a run in 24 consecutive innings pitched. 24 consecutive innings pitched to end out the series. They shut out the Padres 8-0 in game 4, and then they shut them out 2-0 in game 5. They haven't given up a run since the second inning of game 2. Or game 3, excuse me. Unbelievable. This Dodgers pitching staff has been absurd. And Shohei Ohtani. Here's an interesting fact about Shohei. So far throughout this playoffs, he doesn't have a singular hit with no runners on base, but with runners in scoring position, he's 6 for 8 with a homer and 6 RBIs. So Shohei Ohtani, seemingly, I guess when you say like a star player, you have to come through in the clutch, but your numbers also have to be good. When you look at his numbers, you're like, they're not that great for Shohei Ohtani. But then you're like, he's just coming through every time they really need him to. So that's like the opposite of things. Like Judge right now, they're giving him a lot of shit because he can't come through when people need him. Shohei comes through every single time so far this postseason. It's been uncanny. Unbelievable. So, talk about the Dodgers. Had that wild postseason scoreless inning streak, which is actually still alive going into the NLCS. So, they defeated the Padres, who lost in heartbreaking fashion. They were up 2-1, heading back to, or they had a chance to clinch it at home, ended up losing that game 4 at home 8-0. Tough one for them. But San Diego, Fernando Tatis was the hottest hitter on this planet for a while. He has the highest OPS of any qualified hitter in the history of baseball in the playoffs, with a minimum, I think it's 25 or 30 at-bats. But still, Fernando Tatis just cannot be stopped, especially against the Dodgers. The Dodgers cannot stop Fernando Tatis Jr., and it's absurd. It really is. But they were able to at the end of the series. The bullpen locked it down, and now we have our championship matchups. Dodgers-Mets and Yankees-Guardians. So, 4 wins for whatever team to make it to the World Series. Just a potential of, I guess you could say, 12 baseball games less in the season if all 3 series are sweeps. Let's hope that's not the case. But man, what a fun, wild ride this postseason has been so far. And it's just going to get better. So these 2 matchups look unbelievable. Strength against strength. Mets pitching, starting pitching has been great. The Dodgers lineup is so massive. The Dodgers bullpen has been great, but the Mets take people down late in games. So what's going to give here? Is it going to be the Dodgers bats getting quieted? Are the Mets starting pitchers going to get roughed up a little bit? Are the Dodgers bullpen going to continue to do what they do, or the Mets going to get to them late? Let's see what happens in that one. And the Yankee series, I'm really looking for similar matchups. The Yankees bullpen especially did not give up a single run in the entirety of the divisional series against the Royals. So we'll see how that holds up for now after kind of having a questionable bullpen going into the playoffs. And obviously the big question is Aaron Judge going to start hitting? Jose Ramirez finally broke out of his slump in Game 4, hit a massive home run against the Tigers. So now, 2 stars, Jose Ramirez and Aaron Judge versus the other side, Shohei Ohtani and Francisco Lindor. Obviously, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman in there as well. But, man, bunch of stars in the final four teams with a chance to make it to the World Series. So, that's going to do it for us here on the Bobby Valentine Sports Show. That was the divisional round recap. We'll see you next time after the championship series. So, I'm Frank Rampin. Peace out.